Up until 5 years ago, I had one of the most incredible runs in human history.
You bet.
I mean, it's sports with a baseball team winning the World Series, winning the America's Cup. I got a photograph of myself with the World Series trophy under one arm and the America's Cup under the other. I mean, nobody ever did that before. And I started the first global network with CNN, and we got it in everywhere, Russia, China, Japan, you name it. And I went around the world marketing it myself. And I did a lot of neat little things along the way. But losing my job, losing my fortune, and having other personal problems of quite significant magnitude humbled me, brought me down off my high horse, and I think it's made me
it humbled you?
No question. No question. Oh, I used to really think a lot of myself.
Ted Turner died May 6, 2026. He imagined himself a great man. He was in multiple ways. He created a huge institution, CNN. He changed things. After CNN, global news was not the same. He won things. The America's Cup in sailing is the fiercest challenge, not only against other sailors, but fast boats and the weather. He fulfilled other men's dreams, owning a Major League Baseball team and marrying a beautiful, smart actress. He was a rich man, owning companies and land worth billions of dollars. He was a good man, giving huge amounts of money to philanthropy. He was an admired man and a tragic man, climbing the tallest mountains and falling. He was there for all to see, brash, cocky, driven, opinionated, sometimes unpleasant, and full of himself. And yes, Ted Turner died knowing he had touched lives and made a difference. In the end, that is what makes a great life.
I saw the other day where you'd been involved on the mall at a
the protest
movement for
Million Woman March. I wanted to march with the women.
You were there.
It was a lot of fun too.
Population.
I had always wanted to march, and I never had marched in a big march before, and I'm going to do more marching. I don't have as much money as I had, but I can sure as hell go out and march.
So let's talk about your passions now.
Marching.
Marching is number one.
Marching for women and with women.
And with women. Your passion for, you've got the nuclear threat initiative.
Right.
You're supporting that.
Sam Nunn and I.
What's that about?
That's to try and, that's an organization that, an NGO that was designed to kind of help and prod governments along and fill in where governments can't or won't do the job to try and make the world safer from weapons of mass destruction than they currently are. Most people in the world don't know that the nuclear arsenals of Russia and the United States are on hair trigger alert 11 years after the Cold War has ended. And it's crazy. There could be a mistake. Our technology fails almost every day. An airliner goes down somewhere in the world. And to have the 30,000 nuclear warheads on hair trigger alert, where within minutes the whole world will be incinerated, doesn't make any sense, particularly when our relationship with the Russians has completely changed from what it was during the Cold War. Why has the posture on the weapons not been changed too? And we're working on that, and we're making significant progress towards de-alerting these missiles in cooperation with members of the Russian and the U.S. government. It hasn't really gotten out yet publicly to large degree, but a lot of work is going on behind the scenes to greatly reduce the threat that will incinerate ourselves.
You said to Fortune magazine in a piece in 2003, you think the possibility of humanity surviving the next 50 years is about 50-50.
That's right.
Because of what?
Because of a combination of things, mainly because the human race, a combination of our population growth, which has grown in my lifetime to triple what it was. When I was born in 1938, the world population was just over 2 billion. It's 6.2 billion now. And if I live to be 80, it'll approach 8 billion. So in the lifetime of one person, the population has quadrupled of humans, whereas the population of elephants and most other large wild animals is down by 80 or 90%. Half the forests in the world are gone. Basically what we're doing, there's too many of us with our technology putting too much pressure on the environment. We have to we have to move to a new era where we're the best we can be. We're capable of doing this. We've had a successful civil rights movement. The major nations on earth, the first world, it's unthinkable that any first world country would go to war with another first world country. You'll never see another war between Germany and France. We've almost put war behind us. We need to put war behind us immediately. This war in Iraq has to be the last war. And I'll tell you why. The reason is that $800 billion a year that goes into the global military budgets needs to be used to create a new energy society that's based on renewables instead of fossil fuels. It was 95 degrees here today in Aspen, right? We're at 8,000 feet in the Colorado Rockies. How could it be 95 degrees here? It's global war. It's climate change. That's what we want to call it now. It's politically correct. But unless we start dealing with the real basic underlying problems that threaten our very existence, we don't have much of a future. On the other hand, if we do the right things, if we do everything right for the next 50 years, we could be living in a paradise, or we could be gone. It's our choice whether we want to go on and survive and prosper and live in a paradise, which this earth originally was. Even in the Bible it says that, or do we want to turn it into a hell, a hot, burning hell where the plants have all withered and died and the water's all dried up and we're starving to death in the desert?
Where does this put your politics?
Where does it put my politics? Yeah. I'm an independent. I'm for whoever comes up with the program that plans for our survival rather than our demise.
Who do you think speaks to those concerns of yours, John Kerry or George Bush?
What do you think? I have to say, I want to be hang on a very high plane. I mean, I just almost gave Ralph Reed a hug, you know. And nobody represents the religious right better than Ralph does. And I've known him for years. He lives in Atlanta now. Came down to haunt me on a daily basis.
Did you make him into an Atlanta Braves fan?
He turned the whole state over to the Republicans. Hell, we had Max Cleland, a decorated war veteran, you know. He defeated him, you know, he and the Republicans.
But you put your arm around and hugged him here at this convention?
I didn't, but I almost did. I after hearing him talk again tonight, I agree with 80% of what he says, but the other 20% I don't. And so
what do you think about what happened with respect to America so that we ended up in Iraq and so that...
Well, I mean, I think history will look back as this debacle in Iraq is one of the greatest mistakes that any major country ever made in the history. It's as big a bad deal as Time Warner merging with AOL.
That bad.
In one move. In one move, we set the United States back at least 30 years as far as our international relations. I mean, it is going to take a long time and a lot of work to repair our standing in the world.
But what if it turns out better by 2005 that there's a stabilizing of the...
Nothing that can happen in Iraq can... I mean, certainly it will be better if things work out great in Iraq. But we've had many chances to turn Haiti into a democracy, and we haven't even been able to do that.
So what does that say to you?
A couple hundred miles away, and it's a country so broke we could buy it with pocket change, and give everybody, out of it wouldn't even take sales tax to make everybody down there millionaires. And we can't straighten it out. Who are we going to go over there by bombing Iraq? We're going to make it better. We wasted $200 billion of our money, $100 billion to destroy the infrastructure of the country. Then we had to pledge $100 billion to build it back, to find one guy who was hiding in a foxhole.
You think if John Kerry's elected, everything will change?
I don't know. I don't think everything will change. The only way that everything will change, that's the reason why I'm here. The only reason that it'll change is because the people of the earth want it to change, that they're willing to make some changes. These changes will not be painful. To cut the military budgets all over the world in half and take that $400 billion and use it to improve education and health care and the economies of these third world countries, where the reason we have terrorism in the world, the only way we will ever win the war on terrorism, not by shooting terrorists, we won't do it. First of all, we can't shoot them anyway. They blow themselves up before we can get our hands on them. How in the hell can you punish somebody that's already dead?
Well, but they're also blowing up a lot of good people too.
And then there's what happened in the prison over there.
A lot of American soldiers have been killed. A lot of American soldiers have been killed by terrorists.
We're terrorizing and sodomizing prisoners of war, for Christ's sake, when we're over there high and mighty trying to tell everybody that we got all the answers. And we're going after a repressive regime with torture. When we were torturing people too? What about those big dogs that they said they could put on people? Have you ever had a German Shepherd dog turned on you that was mean?
No.
That's pretty scary.
It is. Now, how do you think it came to that is my point. How did we get to this point where things are, in your judgment, so bad?
Well, really, because we're so smart. But we were smart enough to build refrigerators and fossil internal combustion engines and all that sort of thing. And we didn't realize, and at the beginning there were just a few of them, so it didn't have much impact. And there were only a relatively few of us. 100 years ago, there were only 1 billion people on Earth. So, and when World War II, we have 10 times as many cars in the United States as we had when World War II ended. 10 times as many. It's the magnitude of all of us with all our stuff and all of our basic needs that is creating a situation where the world can no longer support us. And we're not living off the interest, the planet's production every year. We're living on the capital. The forests are receding. The oceans are already almost completely
But the American
depleted.
people aren't stupid.
It's not the American people. It's everybody. But the American people consume more than anybody else. Homes in the United States are twice the square footage of homes in Europe owned by people that have comparable incomes as we do. In Japan, the houses are 1/3 the size of ours. We're the most wasteful people on earth.
Do you think that somebody who believes what Ted Turner believes could be elected president of the United States?
Yes.
You think that's where the public, if in fact the issues are articulated and the facts are shown?
Absolutely. Anything is possible. Anything is possible. And the main thing is that with every passing day, we see what a mistake this war was. And quite frankly, today, wars might have made sense back in the time of Alexander the Great and Julius Caesar, when they didn't have any pro football or television to watch on Sunday afternoons. You had to have something to be excited about.
Okay, but sure.
And war was exciting, All you got to go see is Troy, Brad Pitt. He looks pretty good, stabbing that guy in the back. But nowadays, with nuclear and weapons of mass destruction, war isn't fun anymore.
Tell me what the hardest thing about watching your net worth go from 10 or 11 billion to about 1 or 2 billion.
Oh, you mean my net worth?
Yes.
Well, you know what? Once again, you really, up until 5 years ago, I had one of the most incredible runs in human history.
You bet.
I mean, it's sports with a baseball team winning the World Series, winning the America's Cup. I got a photograph of myself with the World Series trophy under one arm and the America's Cup under the other. I mean, nobody ever did that before. And I started the first global network with CNN, and we got it in everywhere, Russia, China, Japan, you name it. And I went around the world marketing it myself. And I did a lot of neat little things along the way. But losing my job, losing my fortune, and having other personal problems of quite significant magnitude humbled me, brought me down off my high horse, and I think it's made me
it humbled you?
No question. No question. Oh, I used to really think a lot of myself. Hey, I was married to a beautiful movie star.
Right.
I mean, even if she was an activist.
Yes.
So I was really, I was sitting on top of the world.
You were sitting on top of the world. I mean,
And
you had
it's
it all.
good.
And you were owned the largest amount of land in America.
I do that now. And that's something, it's not nothing.
Well, it's not nothing. Exactly. Bill Gates is given a whole lot of money, billions of dollars.
Way more than me, but he has more than me.
Yeah.
He's got more left than me, too, by a long shot.
But do you think it's a good idea for people as rich as you were and are to start giving it away way before they die and leave it to some foundation?
Particularly with the world situation, what it is right now. The world situation is so critical. A lot of wealthy men live longer today, and because the health care is better and so forth. And as a result of that, for instance, for family planning, and we need the money to go into family planning now, not 15 or 20 years from now. The problems need to be solved right now. That's why I gave the money away right now and over the last years. As soon as I started getting rich, I started thinking about giving money away, and it happened in tandem. And the richer I got, the more I gave away. And for a while there, I thought I had a money machine because I'd give away $1 billion, I'd get another $1 billion, or $2 billion.
You know why that was? Because of the AOL Time Warner merger.
No, bullshit.
You didn't have $10 billion before that merger?
I did too.
No, you didn't.
I had close to it. I shot 5, 6, 7, 8, depending on what day.
Before the merger?
No, yeah.
You know what you said at the time of the merger?
I know. I said I was trying to be a good team player and say something good about it.
And what did you say?
I said I felt so excited. I felt as excited about signing the papers on the merger as I did about having sex the first time. But I didn't really. I was just trying to make the shareholders happy. We had all these guys from Time Inc., including myself and Time Warner, that had all their money invested in the company. And a lot of them are in this room. And I wasn't the only one that lost his buns.
It was the stupidest move you have ever seen, you said.
Yes.
The merger of AOL and Time Warner.
The war in Iraq's close.
How about selling Turner Broadcasting and your beloved CNN to Time Warner? How does that stack up?
That was a brilliant idea.
Was it really?
Yes.
Because it made you the largest stockholder in Time Warner?
I had close to 10% of the stock. And that was enough to where Jerry Levin, nobody in management dared come after me at that point. I felt like I was pretty safe enough. And Charlie, I'll tell you something else. One reason that I merged too is I had worked awful hard for awful long. And I was tired. And when you're tired, it clouds your thinking a little bit. I probably shouldn't have done that merger.
You think of anybody that you know who's accomplished more, winning the America's Cup, creating a world CNN.
I don't need to say that. I don't need to. I think that, I'm well known and well liked all over the world. I mean, there's some people that don't like me, I guess, but not many.
So
Let's ask in this room. How many people don't like me? Raise your hand. How many people do like me? Hear that? And this is a pretty sophisticated audience.
smart group, isn't it?
That's right.
Could you start all over today at 65 and create another empire if you wanted to?
Sure.
You could.
I not at 65?
Yeah.
No. But I am working on with a good partner whose wife's here in the room, is Ted's Montana Grill. I mean, I really think that we're gonna have a successful major restaurant chain, and I think I got a chance of making another $1 billion before I retire.
Are you doing it to make money or not?
No, I'm doing it just to show that there's no business tougher than the restaurant business, right? Everybody knows that. And hardly anybody in this room's in the restaurant business. Nobody but an idiot would go into the restaurant business. Anybody.
So why did Ted go into business?
The entry are lower than any other business except, a filling station. But with $50,000 and a kitchen, everybody knows how to cook, right? Anybody can open a restaurant. So it's real easy to do, and it's very, very difficult and tough to make a buck.
But why bison?
Why not? That's all part of my environmental movement. I've got almost 2 million acres, and I've got close to 40,000 bison and no cattle on my properties. The bison was the original American animal. The cows were imported from Europe. There were no cattle in North or South America. There were none in the Western Hemisphere when the white man arrived here, but there were millions of bison. And I think they're a better animal, and the food's better for you. The meat has half as much fat and cholesterol and it tastes better.
And what do you think the odds?
Beef.
What do you think the odds are of making this a successful chain?
I think the odds are heavily in my favor.
Do you really?
Yes.
What is it you think you have? And I'm serious about this.
Magic.
Magic?
A little bit.
Little bit.
Well, you have to have a little bit of magic. I mean, hey, listen, Michael Eisner's here. He runs the Magic Kingdom.
He does.
He's gotten a lot of magic. And he's still got a job. He may have been downgraded a little bit, but not much. I mean, at least Mike, I came up there and said, at least you've still got a job,
That's what you said to him?
Yeah.
So when I asked you,
we're friends.
I said to you at the beginning of this conversation, you don't have a job. And so you say to Michael, at least you have a job.
Well, I got a job in the restaurant business.
I can see
and
you.
I've got a job in philanthropy. I'm an officer on all three of my foundations.
A couple of questions about media before we go to philanthropy. All right? Media today. Assess where you think it is, this competition.
Too concentrated.
You were against the FCC ruling.
Absolutely. And I've got a major article, op-ed type 9-page article coming out in
Washington Monthly.
It's going to be in it next month, right?
Washington Monthly has been training ground for some great journalists.
I know, but it's got a circulation of 2,000 or 3,000.
Well, you're on my show now.
Well, at least it's going to be published.
Right.
I mean, the New York
opposed to
Times turned it down. The Wall Street Journal. I think it's a scathing indictment of big business. And I'm part of big business, sort of.
Now that
they made a big mistake firing me, I'm going to cause a lot of trouble.
Is revenge in your heart at all?
Yes,
it is.
A little bit. I can't help. I'm really mad as hell. If you want to know the truth. Yeah,
you're mad.
Yes.
You're mad at whom?
Mad at myself.
Most of all yourself.
Yeah, because, but mainly circumstances. I mean, if I had, $8 or $10 billion today instead of 1.5, I could do a lot more good.
That burns at you, doesn't it? This idea that when it was up around 10 or 11 billion, you thought you could take those resources
and
give them away and do them in a way that would make a difference in health care, in the fight against HIV.
Now I got to make more speeches and appearances.
You're not going to do it about speeches and appearances.
Well, that's all I got. That's why I can go march, I got the little publicity for that. But we've learned a lot during the last 10 years. And if we're not quite as effective without so much money, maybe we're giving 10 million where we gave away 70, but we can give that 10 million much more intelligently because of what we've learned. I think one of the proudest things I am of that I've been involved with. I mean, obviously the Braves, CNN. I mean, I'm proud of everything, even the cartoon.
You are proudest of CNN.
But yes.
That's it.
But I'll tell you where I think I may end up making a greater contribution even than there is in philanthropy, because philanthropy needed some new ideas and some shaking up. There's nothing wrong with giving to your church or giving to your symphony or giving to the opera or giving in the museum or giving to your university. Those things are all worthwhile things to give to. But we shouldn't be giving 98% of our money to those things and only 2% to international aid and 2% to the environment. That's a wrong priority. We need to shift. We need to shift half our giving to more important things than symphonies and operas and I love the opera. I mean, I wanted to be an opera singer and a fire chief.
And tried to be a manager of a baseball team.
I did.
You interrupted.
I didn't try.
I know you did.
I did for a day.
For a day. And got in trouble because of it.
Well, I shouldn't have.
With
there was nothing illegal about it. They came up with new rules on the spot. I was like one of those guys in prison over in Iraq. You know, I was being tortured by somebody who had no reason to do it.
Who was that?
Bowie Kuhn. I do like Bowie Kuhn now that he's retired, but I don't like Levin.
Who else don't you like?
Rupert Murdoch.
Why don't you like Rupert?
Because I think he's a bad journalist.
In other words, but no, this was before you thought he was a bad journalist.
And that was before he screwed up the New York Post cover last week.
What'd you think of that?
Well, I think I
bet you loved it more.
Sloppy journalism.
You love that more than anybody in the country.
It's just sloppy journalism. That's all.
How do you think it happened?
We had sloppy journalism. We had sloppy journalism on that sarin gas story.
Yeah.
It was such a big secret that they kept it from top management.
You know what you said at the time?
I mean, that's really dumb.
But you know what you said at the time? You said, I feel so bad about this, I almost want to commit suicide.
I wanted to apologize and make it clear how contrite I was. When you make a mistake, or your organization does, about all you can do, I wasn't involved with it. All you can do is apologize and say, we'll try not to make that mistake again. You know, if you're in business, particularly in journalism, and you're trying to, you're trying to beat deadlines, you're trying to beat the competition and get a scoop, you take risks sometimes on some stories not being accurate, because you go to press with them too early before you've had a chance to check it out.
There is more to your enmity for Rupert Murdoch than just differences over journalism.
Well, I think he's a very frightening person.
Frightening? Because he has power?
Well, he runs Britain. He literally has control of Britain. I talked to Tony Blair many years ago, and I said, Tony, why don't you crack down on Rupert a little? He's got too much control of Britain. He said, Ted, I wouldn't have been elected. I wouldn't be in my job without Rupert. He said, I can't go after him. What about that?
So he has too much power.
Yeah, with half the newspaper readership and all the television channels and so forth.
Does he have? What do you think of?
And he would like to run the United States. He would like to run the world. He's close to running Australia. He does run Britain. He'd like to run the United States, and he'd like to run India. Because I think and he's got a lot of television over there, but he really would like to dominate the world. And he only cares about two things: money and power. He does not care about doing good. He doesn't even have a small foundation. He gives no money away to charity that I know of. And if you call him up, he won't give you an interview.
And here you are with me.
That's right.
Stay with me on this issue, though.
Which issue?
The issue of giving away money.
Okay, well, that's different than the last one.
We'll come back. Are you going to be able to keep your commitment
to the UN?
To the UN.
Yes. Yes. In fact, I am keeping my commitment. Now,
you promised them $1 billion over 10
but there
years.
was a caveat there. There's a caveat there. What do you think I am, stupid? The caveat is that the Time Warner stock that I put up for it retains the value to meet that commitment. If it goes below that, I had to hedge my downside, or I would have risked bankruptcy if the stock went down uncontrollably or almost uncontrollably. Certainly, I couldn't control it. If it went down uncontrollably during the period of time, because I made a pledge, but it was backed up by $1 billion worth of Time Warner stock at that time. And it has never really significantly gone underwater, and it's above water now. The strike price is about in the low 15s, and the stock's
about
at
18.
17 at 17 and a half.
Right.
And I've already paid off half of it.
Well,
so
you still have what? How much stock you still have in Time Warner?
I've got about 35 million shares.
Why did you sell it?
I sold it because I was afraid. First of all, I don't think the company, some of the people at the company, most of them that were involved, I think they made a big mistake phasing me out the way that they did. And they didn't really do it in a graceful manner. After 50 years, they didn't even have a goodbye reception for me when I resigned as vice chairman. The only reason I resigned as vice chairman, I was collecting $1 million a year. You get these billions and millions mixed up. Doesn't really matter anyway. I was getting $1 million a year, and they were letting people go that were making 40 and 50,000 to cut back, and I wasn't doing anything. I had no duties except they were giving me the $1 billion just to keep me. It was hush money is the way I figured it. And I didn't want any damn hush money. It's not like I came out and said a lot afterwards. I didn't. But, and I'm not going to now. And the company now is a lot better. It's a lot better run now than it was.
What more could you say?
Well, there's a lot I could say.
Like what?
Well, like what? None of your damn business. Go dig it out. There's tens of thousands of employees at Time Warner that could tell you the story.
When you would go in and say to them, Time Warner, I would like to play a bigger role here. I at least would like to know if you're making executive changes at CNN.
Well,
and
how about
finally
this?
Would like. Okay.
Can I tell you?
Yes.
I'll give you an example. I'm out in New Mexico. I get a call from Jerry Levin on the phone. I have 2 years to go on my contract, my 5-year contract that I signed, which had the Turner Networks and HBO report to me. We were doing great. Our earnings were up. We were on budget and everything. And on the telephone, he tells me, I'm replacing you. I said, you're replacing me without any discussion? I said, Jerry, what about my contract? He said, to hell with your contract.
In those words.
Well, he didn't say to hell, but he said words to that effect. And I said, Jerry, in my life, I've never said to hell with a contract. I've always felt a contract with Time Warner's name on it ought to be worth the paper it's printed on, But he said, we're just, that's what we're doing. And on the telephone, so I don't think that was, first of all, I don't think it was very smart. And I could have, I said, I could sue you if I wanted to. And he said, yeah, well, go ahead and sue us. He said, all you'll get is your salary, that you would have gotten. And, that's not a very general, I never did anything like that to anybody. I never said I abrogate a contract unilaterally without discussion.
If you had been given a major role in that company in terms of responsibility and authority, how would it be a different company?
Well, you never know, but I would not have done the AOL deal.
You are a dreamer.
Well, I came real close. And in fact, we really did. We ended up very close to, if you take CNN, Headline News, Cartoon Network, TNT, TBS, and Turner Classic Movies, and I don't know whether I threw Headline News in there.
Which you created.
You've got 7 networks. It's bigger than NBC.
But you wanted a network.
I wanted more.
Yeah. How close did you come to getting CBS?
Very close.
And when you walk by there, what's that
Very
song?
close to ABC too. I mean, close, so close that it was in my hand, And I just watched it slip away like the gold dust did through Humphrey Bogart's hands in The Treasure of Sierra Madre.
You can't beat that.
Showbiz.
You tried your hand at movie producing.
I did real well, too.
Gods and Generals.
Yes, sir. But I also was the one that greenlit Lord of the Rings.
You're the one.
New Line reported to me and was a separate company 5 years ago when we made the deal.
The greatest movie success in the last 10 years.
The latest movie success in the history of movies.
In the history of movies.
Ever. Made $1 billion net profit already. I was the one that had to approve the money. And I said, do you really believe in this project? They said, yeah. I said, well, you know, I glanced at Lord of the Rings when I was a kid. If you really believe in it, let's do it.
I mean this question.
300 million, just like you have to have guts.
Okay,
no
that's
guts,
what I'm
no
getting
glory.
at. You know,
well, I had plenty of guts. But you also have to be right. If you can have guts. You know, for instance, I think our president's got a lot of guts. And I just think he went in the wrong direction in Iraq. You know, I mean, maybe, you know, if we'd have put that same resource into rebuilding Haiti or something, a little smaller project where they, you know,
right.
Well, they were Christians.
So you got vision. Yeah, you can see, John, you wanted a network long before you had the means to get one.
Before all the other integration occurred, I was way ahead of everybody else.
You were the first person to understand the power of satellite after HBO was successful.
Right.
You put that, you knew.
First worldwide news.
So where does this come from? I mean, what is it that, help us understand.
I'll tell you what, you know where it came from?
Yeah.
It came very simply.
Where?
Thinking, using your brain. I didn't watch much television, for instance. I read and I thought. And I went around and talked to smart people.
You could also connect the dots.
I could connect the dots.
You really could connect the dots.
I could see over the horizon a little bit.
But more than that, once you decided that this was the place you wanted to go, there was nothing.
Nothing could stop me.
Nothing could stop you. I mean, there were not a lot of people telling you CNN was a great idea. And a lot of people.
No, they all said it was a terrible idea.
You know, a lot of people, when you paid, what, $1.2 billion for MGM, what'd you pay for MGM?
Yeah.
A lot of people said this was the dumbest movie.
And Time Warner's about to pay $5 billion for the not so good half of it, not because it was 15 years ago.
Well, they got to compete with Sony to get it first.
Yeah, I know. But I didn't have to compete with anybody because nobody was trying to buy it.
Okay, but it enabled them to tie you up in knots because you almost went.
A little bit, but they were knots that they gave me TNT. I did what I had to do without compromising my principles. And without doing anything dishonest, illegal, or immoral.
Who's had the most influence on you in your entire life?
A lot of people.
Starts with your father.
He had a lot of influence on me.
Strict disciplinarian.
Gandhi, Martin Luther King, Alexander the Great, Horatio Nelson, Stonewall Jackson.
Margaret Mitchell.
Not that much.
You love Gone with the Wind.
I do. But I did. But
you know how you describe. You know how you describe where you are in your life. You say it's like Rhett Butler.
Well, she helped. It helped me. It did help me with my love of the land because when her father said to her, "What difference does it make who you marry as long as he's a Southerner?" Remember when she was wanted to marry Ashley, and then he said to her, he said, to anyone with a drop of Irish blood in them, the land's the only thing that matters because it's the only thing that lasts. And I have a little Irish blood in me, so I figured maybe I ought to have to go along with that land deal.
That house you have that you love in Florida.
Right.
Why do you love that house more than any other house?
Well, I didn't say I did.
You did say that. You said this is my favorite place. You did. You said
I
this.
Did?
Yes.
It's only my favorite place in the winter. It's too damn hot down there in the summer. It's being affected by global
But land means something to you because it is. By global warming down there?
It's even hot in Montana, baby. I was there this morning. It was in the 90s there.
So nobody can convince you that global warming is a myth.
Of course not. I mean, the bulk of scientific evidence, absolutely. Any more than the DDT wasn't killing the eagles.
A lot of people in this world, I'm bouncing all over the place, but for good reason. All right, odds because of religion.
That's right. Boy, that's a change.
Because of religion. From land to religion.
Right.
You are agnostic.
I am. But do you know about the conference that I had at the UN of all the world's religious leaders?
No.
About 3 or 4 years ago?
What did you accomplish?
We called them all together and we got them all to sign a petition saying that they did not condone using religion as an excuse for violence against other human beings. And everybody signed it. And really, there's not near as much religion in this war as there have been in previous ones. I mean, there's still some religion. It's unfortunate that there are a lot of Muslims, that are unhappy with a lot of people from Christian descent. But basically, I think there's more tolerance, more religious tolerance in the world, even though we've got this terrible situation in Israel and Palestine. I've studied that a lot too, like so many people have. But But basically, it's not, there's not as much religious hatred or prejudice as there was 50 years ago or 60 years ago when Hitler was running
But
around.
you personally, why don't you have faith?
I do have faith.
You do?
I have some.
Not much.
Well, you know, much compared to what? Yeah. I mean, I really honestly believe, first of all, I was raised as a Christian. I was sent to a Christian school. I was forced to go to church, Christian churches. I ended up being saved 7 times before I graduated from high school, including once by Billy Graham. I mean, I'm born again more than Ralph Reed, for Christ's sake. I ended up.
That's a lot. Because after all, he worked for Pat Robertson.
That's why. Well, Pat Robertson went to my school. I know Pat Robertson. I helped put him on the air.
Okay, but religion again. There is a story
and
about
Jim
you.
Baker.
There is a story. Jim Baker too. You put him on the air.
Jim and Tammy.
You put Pat Robertson on the air and Jim Robertson.
I did. And got a lot of money out of it too.
And got a lot of what?
I got a lot of money out of it. We used to split the take. The money that came in the mail, we had a post office that we both had a key to.
These people were making donations to the church and you got half of it?
We didn't trust each other, and we would take the envelopes out to the television station and open them together and add up how much money it was and split it 50-50.
This was Charlotte?
Every day.
Where, Charlotte?
And Jim and Tammy would drive up in their big Cadillac and get their half every day. I'm not kidding. This is the truth.
Well, we hope everything's the truth.
But there was nothing illegal or immoral about it.
Yeah.
I don't think.
Why were you a good sailor?
Because I worked at it real hard. I didn't have a lot of natural ability. I raced for 8 years in my home club in Savannah, Georgia, and never won the championship at the club. But when I got to college, all the work I'd done started to pay off, and I started winning. And then once I started winning, there was no looking back, because I wasn't about to, until I retired in 81, 33 years later, or 20-something years later after I started winning. I really stuck with it, and I gave it a lot of attention and enthusiasm and hard work,
What did it
which
teach
is
you?
what it takes to be successful at anything, and a certain amount of ability. You have to have a certain amount of ability. And the reason I got into sailing instead of track and field is I wasn't fast. I tried every sport, and I was a little ahead of myself. I was a year ahead in school, so I wasn't as mature as the guys that were in my class. So I couldn't make the first string on any of the sports. But when I got to sailing, I said, aha, this I can do, because it doesn't require as much physical ability as most athletics do. So it's a more cerebral sport, and that was something that I could give. And I'm not that brilliant. I mean, basically, I know what my IQ was. I was only in the 97th percentile. 3% of the people in this country are smarter than me. And with 300 million people, that's that's millions of people that are smarter than me.
So you don't think
basically, but I worked hard to develop my mind, and 50 years later, I'm a lot smarter than I was then. So your mind is a muscle, I think. The more you use it, the stronger it gets, and you can build up your mind to where you can do things that nobody thought you could do when you were a little kid.
Your former assistant, D. Woods, said that you thought you'd die tragically.
Well, there have been different times. I don't know how I'm going to die now, but I know I'm going to die. At least I think so.
No, you are.
Well, my mother-in-law thought that the revelation was going to come, and she was going to be snatched up to heaven. She didn't think she was going to die. She thought the world was going to end. She was an evangelical, and she didn't think she was going to die, but she did.
Was it important to you to live longer than your father?
Well, my father died at 53, so yes, particularly now that I'm 65, it was important that I live longer than him.
Yeah. You fear death?
Nah.
You don't worry about it? Because you've had this wonderful life? Because there's still plenty, because you continue to have goals? Because
fear is not a good thing to have. And I have known some fear the last 5 years because I've had attacks of anxiety during this time. But before that, I was just, that's why I say having the difficulties I've had the last 5 years has made me a better and stronger person. And at least I'm trying to take that tack on it. And
Well, you're trying to convince yourself that
Yeah.
there is some good coming out of this.
Some good comes
tragedy.
out of bad.
Yeah.
Versus you learn how to.
But how are you doing in convincing
you
yourself?
learn how to eat humble pie.
Well, your humble pie is you think you didn't fight against the merger of AOL Time Warner. Your humble pie. Your humble pie is.
I couldn't have won that fight. I checked with my.
So
with
what
the
would you need to?
biggest shareholders that I knew and my financial advisors. Everybody was for this deal. I was the only one that questioned it, and but I didn't get enough support with. So I could see that I couldn't win. So I went along and tried to make it work as enthusiastically as I can, even though I had my doubts.
And we know what turned out.
Yeah.
What else made you anxious in the last 5 years?
Breakup of some relationships that I had, including a marriage. That shook me a little. Of all the failures in my life so far, and I'm still working on it, I have a lovely girlfriend here tonight with me. But my biggest failing in life has been that I was unable to have a happy long-term marriage. I think I worked too hard for one thing.
Sailing took you away.
Yeah,
at
a lot. But I didn't do it. But I work and travel so much. It was really hard for people to keep up.
In pursuit of making sure you were successful at your work.
Yeah, but I also wanted to be successful as a father and as a husband or boyfriend. I really do like women, and I like having them around or having one around. It's a hell of a lot better than being lonesome, as far as I can see.
Abandonment or loneliness is not something you want to be.
That I don't like. I would not be good in solitary confinement.
What would happen if you were in solitary
I'd probably
confinement?
go nuts. In the dark too, boy. I'd hate to be in a dungeon in the dark like the Count of Monte Cristo.
You'd hate that.
I wouldn't want that.
Do you take lithium, or did you?
That'd be the worst torture you could put on me.
Put you in a dark room with nobody.
Put a dog in there with me. A dog that wants to eat people.
It's embarrassing for America, wasn't it?
It was. It was for me.
Lithium. Did you stop taking lithium?
I had a quack psychiatrist for a while.
Who prescribed it?
Yes. He just looked at me and said, "You're manic, take this." Well, I don't know much about medical science. I know more than I did, but I'm not a doctor. So I just took what I was told to do, and I took it for several months before I got this physical, and they told me to stop taking it, and I stopped taking it.
And you're okay.
Noticed. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I do take a little medication for anxiety, but not much. Very small dose.
I read that the relation between you and your kids has just gotten better and better and better.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the great things that's happened in the last 5 years.
And quite frankly, I always had a pretty good relationship with my kids. But I've realized how important that is. There's no way that you can be successful in life if your family's not a success. So you have to, it should be, if not your absolute top priority, it should be tied for first place in the priorities in everyone's life. If you're going to bring children into the world, you owe it to them to give them a good start. And I think, quite frankly, that those who are more fortunate than others, as so many of us here in the United States are, have a moral obligation to help those less fortunate themselves, both here and abroad.
That is at the core of your philosophy.
Absolutely.
It really is. I mean,
I like to see things made better. That's what I try to do with my land. What I want to do is see everybody, why can't we all do the right thing? Why can't we all be driving hybrid automobiles as soon as we can get converted over? Why can't we put up windmills and solar panels and close down the coal burning plants? We can. And we should. And we will if I have to anything
Well,
to
but
say
that
about
also
it.
explains your business success. You said, why can't we have a cable news network? Why can't we take this little station in Atlanta and put it on a satellite and
Turn it into a network.
and turn it into a network?
Why not? Well, we
you
did.
kept asking, why can't we? And that's the reason you
Well,
prevailed.
if you keep asking that and you go out there and do something about it, you can do it. I mean, remember the Frank Sinatra song, about the rubber tree plant and the little ant that,
Do you remember
can move a rubber tree plant. Anyone knows an ant can't move a rubber tree plant. Got to have high hopes.
I got two last questions. You've mentioned Jane here a couple of times.
I have not.
You said your wife, who was a movie star?
I had lots of wives. Well, she was the only one that was a
movie star. That's right.
Trap me. I'm trying not to mention names.
All right.
Names, dates, and places.
Exactly. Leave it to history. She said that this is a major transition for you at every level, and that for an alpha male who has always been in control, at least of that part of the life that you can control, it is a little bit unsettling. Is she right?
What was she writing about?
You.
At what time?
I think in the last year, in 2003.
I don't. I value what she says a lot, and I guess there's some wisdom in what she said. That sounds like she thought about it a bit.
You were remarkably candid. Do you still want on your tombstone these words?
Well, the latest, I've come up with a lot of different
Well, let me tell you what I was thinking about, and then you tell me if this is the latest.
Let's see, the one
that I was thinking
recent
about, let me tell you what I'm thinking about first.
I have nothing more to say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like that.
What's the new one?
Well, that's the most recent one. One many years ago was, "You can't interview me here."
Ted Turner. Join me, become a subscriber to Charlie Rose Global Conversations, and make it a better experience. Click this link to subscribe.